Welcome back to CubeCon here in Madison, Wisconsin. Andy Mangold in the booth with Emma Partlow. We're going to get to go down and see the deck construction of Emma, or not Emma, sorry, you're Emma, of Melissa DeTora's first opponent in round 1 of this draft. But first, we want to thank one of the great sponsors of CubeCon, and that sponsor is Cube Heads. This is a friend of mine, Steve, who is just a big member of the community that loves all of the people that are part of this Cube community, and he's been making these great interviews and videos on his YouTube channel called Cube Heads, where he's really highlighting the community aspect of this format. You know, there's all kinds of lists out there of the best 10 cube cards from this set and, people with their different cube takes and cube design ideas. But really, there's not anybody else I know of doing the thing that Steve is doing, which is these human interest stories talking about how people got into this format and just the social impact of a great kind of way to play Magic. We all play Magic just to meet great people, right?
Right. It's all about the gathering, after all.
It's all about the gathering. And so it's all just a way to meet cool people and have a good time. And so check out youtube.com/cubeheads to see some of these great videos. I do especially want to recommend the interview with Parker Lamaskis, one of my collaborators on some other projects. Great interview with Parker in a park in Philadelphia if you want to check that out in your spare time. Now we are heading down to the table to see the deck being constructed to play against Melissa, which I believe is going to be the deck on the right here, if production can confirm. We're looking at
some Simic nonsense here.
Yeah, I'm seeing Titania. I'm seeing Torrential Gearhulk. I'm seeing Hieroglyphic Illumination.
Seeing some
Control Magic. Yeah, so Remand, Deep Root. So got some land synergies going on here, and we got a lot of permission.
And a lot of counter spells as well.
Yeah, the counter spells with Torrential Gearhulk. So I got to be honest. Justin was, we were talking to Justin Parnell here in between rounds when we were off air, and he had a great line I'm going to steal right now, which is that, when people like Melissa DeTora, Wizards of the Coast employee, works for design and development, when she comes to an event like this, oftentimes she's here in the capacity as a emissary to the community. She's here to, meet people, schmooze, be nice and kind to everybody, and just make friends. That's not the Melissa DeTora that sat down to draft this seat.
Right.
The Melissa DeTora that sat down to draft this seat is Pro Tour Top 8 Melissa DeTora.
Yep.
She's here to take names, and this deck I think is going to be quite good.
Yes.
Looking at what she's going to be up against in this round 1 as we're getting down to our final 40, I am concerned for Melissa's opponent because what I see here is a lot of top end, and I see some value generating things, but I'm not seeing any of the stuff we talked about in terms of big evasive creatures, in terms of recurring life gain, in terms of big tramplers. Titania, Protector of Argoth, is a great example of a really, really powerful card. And a really powerful card in this cube with all these fetch lands running around. The problem is that those 5/3s are just 5/3s. They ain't got flying. They ain't got trample.
You can chump them for days.
You're just going to chump block that with any little 1-drop. You're going to chump block one with a Cult Conscript over and over again. And every time you're going to get 2 triggers off of your various blood artists, and it's just going to chip away your opponent's life total.
This is why cards like Hangerback Walker are really good, because yes, you can make this 5/5 Hangerback Walker. The second it dies, you make 5 1/1s, and they just block these tokens for days.
Yeah. One of the cards I see in the land pile there might end up mattering, and that's Treetop Village.
Yes.
This is a card that I think, doesn't have a reputation in modern Magic, but back in the day was well respected.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Treetop Village was in Jund in Modern at one point.
Well, yeah, but it's been a minute. Either way, in terms of creature lands, this one remarkably efficient. For only 2 mana, you turn this into a 3/3 green creature with trample. With trample, Emma. Which is, I think, really important here. Honestly, I could see a situation where the best thing to do with the mana turn after turn if you're Emma's opponent is just to send this Treetop Village in, because casting another spells is not going to line up super well against what Emma's doing. All right, gosh, Emma, you're Emma. Jeez.
Yes.
Guess what Melissa's doing. Melissa's deck also, I think, lines up quite well against these counter spells. The curve is so low, and there's a lot of ways to recur things out of the graveyard and a lot of redundant effects. It's not like you're going to counter Melissa's only payoff because Melissa has 7 of them. So answering the Mayhem Devil is great, but you're still going to die to the Zulaport Cutthroat or the Blood Artist. Now, I'm definitely not going to write off this opponent before we get to the round. That's just my read of how this matchup goes. I think Melissa's probably a bit favored.
Yes, I agree.
But we all know how Magic goes. We know nothing about this opponent. At least I don't know nothing about this opponent in terms of their pedigree or how much they came to win. So we're definitely going to have to see how this shakes out in the actual games, because if there's one thing I can say about me and Magic, it's that I'm wrong a lot.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. We're here because we like to talk, we like to make stuff up, and yeah, we're going to see how this shakes out. What is the, I'm trying to get, we got a Ranger class there. That Tatyova, the land creature matters Tatyova,
Yes.
will combine really nicely with that Treetop Village here.
You also got some nice fetches in here. I believe we've got a Misty Rainforest, and I believe we have 2 Polluted Deltas as well at the bottom there. And also I see a Waterlogged Grove. All these are going to be really nice with the Titania. Just to make those 5/3s. Granted, the 5/3s don't have trample, but maybe there's a point where you can just be like, cool, I can get aggressive, make a bunch of 5/3s, and start attacking you if you're not doing much.
Yeah, we also see a Blossoming Tortoise there. That's an interesting card I had not actually seen before from a recent set. This is 4 mana for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill 3 cards and then get a land back from your graveyard to the battlefield. Also, makes activated abilities of your lands cost 1 less to activate and gives your land creatures +1/+1.
Good with Treetop Village.
Treetop Village looking like better and better the more cards we read in this pool. Yeah. And oh, did they actually manage to block or remove your Treetop Village? Well, just turn it into a 5/3 with Titania if Titania is in play. So definitely some synergistic, focused deck building from this opponent, showing off a very different side of what this cube is capable of with this sort of big Simic deck here. Control Magic looks like a card that'll matter in quite a few matchups.
You also have Imprisoned in the Moon, which is a really nice removal spell as well. It doesn't actually get rid of the permanent, but it keeps it around so it can't do anything. It can't activate any abilities. So yeah, there's some nice removal in here. I just think Melissa's deck is just going to go slightly under what this land synergistic deck is trying to do.
Yeah, I think what I am most worried about is the way this removal suite lines up against Melissa's threats.
Yes.
I don't want to control Magic against my opponent with a Goblin Bombardment in their pool. That's not what I'm looking to do at all. I just got the list of the other decks at the table here from production. So the deck we got a little peek of for a second there is a green, white, black enchantment deck, I think.
Yep.
And then we do have a blue-red artifact aggro deck at the table as well.
Sure.
A red-white aggro deck with tons of 1 and 2s, which is going to be quite interesting to see how aggro looks in this environment. We've seen Melissa's deck, which we hear that she is very happy with, and I think this note here suggests that she is in fact running Corvold, quote, for fun.
Which is what we do with Cube. We like to have fun.
Though, like I said, I think maybe Melissa's idea of fun is killing her opponent with Corvold.
I mean, I'm in.
J-Bro is in this pod as well, drafting red-white artifacts with Jen Jansen, Thraben Inspector, and Goblin Welder, so perhaps trying to make a little red-white artifact value engine. We have a green-black lands deck with Loam, Crucible, Wasteland, this
was the one with the Gitrog monster that we saw, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But this deck, importantly, does not have a Titania. But Titania is in the hands of the person we're watching right now. And then we have a 4-color ramp deck with Avenger of Zendikar, Kiora Best of Sea God. And we have the deck we're looking at right now, which is, I think, going to end up being a Sultai deck that is playing a kind of mid-range strategy with a fair bit of interaction. So a nice diverse table. We're going to see how our first round goes against that Sultai mid-range deck with our red-black sacrifice deck that is playing. I guess we can call it Jund Sacrifice now. We got Corvold.
We got Corvold in there.
We get to call it Jund.
I love the fact that Melissa's just gone, yep, I just want to play this Corvold card. Because I'm at CubeCon. I'm here to have fun. I'm not on the clock doing Wizards of the Coast stuff. I just want to have fun. Hopefully pop a Corvold off with these treasure tokens.
I think sometimes, at least what players in my play group do. So they say they're playing something for fun when they want to have an excuse if it doesn't work out. They can be like, oh no, I knew I wasn't supposed to play it because I only had 5 treasure generators or whatever. But I think in Melissa's heart of hearts, she knows that Corvold's actually going to work.
Yeah.
And we're going to see it do some work here in Madison. We're going to take one more quick break, and then we'll be back with Game 1, Match 1. Melissa DeTora playing this red-black sacrifice deck, which I got to imagine is about as good as a red-black sacrifice deck gets in this pool. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a second. Welcome back to CubeCon. Andy Mangold in the booth here with Emma Partlow. Our players have been building their decks. They've been trying to get down to that perfect 40. And we're going to see Wan Shi go up against Melissa DeTora here in round 1 against this pretty messed up red-black sacrifice deck.
It is a very lovely deck. It is. I don't think the draft could have gone any better for Melissa. I don't think there's any other card that you would want.
Maybe a couple fixing lands, but as we saw, Melissa, maybe doesn't need those. Just simply draw the right basic lands.
We have the right Chaos. We have the Mayhem Devil. We've got Goblin Bombardment. We've got some nice removal that ties in with the sacrifice theme. it's just all come together. And it wasn't like no one was fighting for those cards. Melissa just picked the lane and just got rewarded for it.
Absolutely. So I think if Melissa hits all of her mana right on schedule, we could see some really disgusting curve outs from this deck.
I just want to see a Corval cast with treasure tokens for the
I want to see that too. We could see a couple, 1, 2, 3 curves that are just really hard for any deck to beat. However, I think if there's a little stumbling on mana, or if just, wrong combination of enablers and payoffs in your opening hand, then we'll have to see how this deck grinds into the late game when it doesn't have the perfect opening hand. So we're going to go into the game 1 right now and see how this deck plays out. Melissa DeTora on our left, Wanshi on our right, playing Sultai value mid-range. Looks like
going to 6.
Looks like Melissa's going to 6.
Yeah.
I would say this deck probably mulligans pretty well, though.
Yeah,
I'm not too worried about going to 6.
Your curve's low enough that you can be rewarded.
But I gotta wonder. I gotta wonder here in the booth. Is she going to 6 because, all mountains and all black cards? Are we getting punished for no blood crypts right now? Hard to say. A mulligan on the other side, too. So both of our players going down to 6. I gotta say, it's been a few years. I'm still calling it the new mulligan rule, though, and it is amazing how much the London Mulligan has improved, specifically limited and cube draft.
It's improved modern as well, so you have decks like Tron that for a while that were fine, but since this London Mulligan rule, it just becomes better because you're just putting away the cards you don't need and trying to hit those Tron lands as much as possible. It also is just a better experience for newer players as well.
Absolutely.
It's not discouraging, that is the point. You don't want people to be like, oh, I have to mulligan. I can't decide which cards to put away,
Yeah, it's funny how the mulligan rules have changed over time, and they've only gotten better and better. Like, it's only gotten less and less punishing to mulligan. And you think back to the early days, right? What is it like when the game first started? You could literally only mulligan if you had no lands or all lands. You had to reveal your hand, and then you could mulligan. And you still just then drew 6 with no additional selection, no scrying, no nothing. You were just down a whole card. So, the mulligan rules have just gotten better and better. And, I know some people have other feelings about it for specific constructed formats, whatever. I don't care about any of that. I care about Cube, and for Cube, it is perfect. I just want less non-games in my Cube drafts.
It has made Limited more fun and a lot less feel bad, which is great.
Looks like our players are considering their keeps here, or if they've decided to keep considering what card to bottom. I see a Forest in Melissa DeTora's hand, so we are not relying solely on treasure to cast our Corvold.
I do see a Goblin Bombardment, and I see a Scrap-Peat Scrounger.
It does look like the only lands are Forest Mountain. So, again, maybe feeling a little bit of that pressure from the mana.
Yeah,
going to 5 for both. We're gonna see a low resources game here. I gotta say, the more both these decks mulligan, the more I like Melissa's position.
Yeah, agree. You can tell by the conversation between the two players. It's just like, yep, we're going down to 5.
Yeah, I don't have a good indication of who's on the play yet. I think Wanshi is indicating if they are mulliganing first, but I'm not 100% certain. We'll find out when we actually get our opening hands here. But yeah, I think every mulligan, every card down, and Melissa's deck is more and more favored. So as long as Wanshi is also mulliganing, I don't think Melissa's too upset about this.
No,
well, at least, I mean, to be fair, I guess Melissa doesn't know what Wanshi's drafting yet, so Melissa doesn't know how she should feel about it. But if she knew, I think she'd be feeling pretty okay.
Yeah. You just don't want those forests in your opening hand. I imagine there's like 2 forests in the deck.
Yeah, here's why it was a forest. There's got to be a forest because she's playing Ash Barrens. So she probably has exactly 1 so that Ash Barrens is a second green source because you do have to run a basic to turn that Ash Barrens on. See some nodding here, perhaps some keeps finally deciding what to bottom. Putting a land on the bottom for Wanshi. Didn't see what Melissa bottomed there. Also a Treasure Cruise in the bottom, looks like, for Wanshi.
That seems a smart mulligan.
Yeah, you don't really want your 8-drop in your opening hand unless you got nothing but cantrips and fetch lands to fill up that graveyard quickly.
It looks like Melissa has a Judith and a Cult Conscripts I can see in her hand, and maybe a Mountain.
Looks like maybe Wanshi decided instead to just bottom 2 lands, and I can't actually tell what we're looking at here.
I think that's Curse of the Shadowgraves.
That looks like Curse of the Shadowgraves on Melissa's side for sure. So, 5 cards, 2 lands, Cult Conscript, Judith, Curse of the Shadowgraves. Draw 1 more land, and you're off to the races. That's all your deck needs to win is those 3 cards.
Judith works really well with those zombies because it turns them into 2/3s.
Absolutely.
3/2s,
3/2s, yeah. Hit even harder. Doesn't modify the butt, but does modify the power. Just picturing a bunch of zombies that all skip leg day.
Well, they don't have legs. They're crawling half the time anyway.
Exactly, yeah. It was picturing a bunch of zombies that have no butt. They are just the top half of a human body crawling on their arms.
Basically Grave Crawler.
Anyway, welcome to CubeCon, folks. This is what we do here. Wanshi, considering bottoming these cards very carefully, a very important decision here as to what cards you're going to bottom. Melissa is on the draw. We will see a Cult Conscripts from her on turn 1. after a tapped Overgrown Tomb from Wan Shi. You know, one of the challenges of an event like this, as much as I love CubeCon, you know, it's not all rainbows and puppies.
Nope.
There are going to be people playing with a lot of cards they have never seen before, never read before. So, you know, at the tables, I like to be nice and, you know, casual about things. Let my opponent, you know, take time, read the cards, take things back as long as no game information has changed, that sort of stuff. See Search for Escanta coming down now for Wan Shi. So, source of card advantage in a really long game and a card selection in the near term. Cult Conscripts getting in for some damage.
Gonna turn on that Judith.
Should be 2 damage unless Wan Shi.
Wan Shi took one.
We should be at 17 on Wan Shi's life total. I'm sure we'll see that in a second.
Yep.
Now the one thing is Melissa did not draw a 2-drop, so we got 2 great 3-drops here. I didn't see if she drew land yet, but we did not draw something to have a perfect 1-2 curve like we talked about this deck being capable of. It's got to feel good to see that Waterlogged Grove come down on turn 2 if you're Melissa. You don't want to lead on that land unless you desperately need that color of mana, or it looks like a Wan Shi's case, don't have a ton of other lands in your opening hand, and the incidental damage from that is going to add up over the course of this game.
Absolutely, and even with cards like Cult Conscripts, they're just aggressive on their own, right?
And here comes Curse of Shallow Graves. This is going to turn this Cult Conscript into a huge snowballing Rabblemaster.
Yep.
Again, production, we are 2 life up on Wan Shi, unless I'm really missing something here. Wan Shi should be at 17 before this attack, now going to 15. Is this the curse that puts the zombie into play tapped or untapped? I know there are 2. Yeah. It's the tapped one. Yeah, the one with the guy with the cropped cut. That's the one that puts it into play.
Yeah.
Untapped.
And then we're going to put this Judith down, and it's just going to be a lot of damage coming.
Yeah, I mean, right about now is when you want a counterspell if you're Wan Shi. I do see Control Magic over there. I don't know if we have 4th land.
You either want a counterspell or just something that
we do have 4th land.
Or something that soaks up all this damage, right?
Yeah, we do have a 4th land. I see the Blossoming Tortoise, I believe, as well.
Yes, correct.
That is going to just be a 3/3, though, so that may seem like a good stabilizing play. Shocking in an Overgrown Tomb here. This turtle's going to seem like a good stabilizing play right until Judith comes down and makes that prospect a trade instead of a good block. That Blossoming Tortoise is a 3/3, so looks okay right now in the face of a 2/1 and a 2/2.
And
but
here's that Treetop Village that we talked about.
Oh, right, there we go. Treetop Village out of the yard, so getting a little value off of that mill from Search for Escanta, but the Judith is going to look really good on this board, and we see it coming down immediately. And sure, I will absolutely trade my 1-drop or a very small fraction of my 3-drop for your 4-drop.
And then make another, zombie. Let's go.
I don't even think you can afford to block here if you're Wan Shi. I think you have to wait, hope you can control magic that Judith, hope that works, because it may not. And you get to actually turn this game around and stabilize a little bit.
See, this is the thing about these sacrifice decks. Yes, you have all these synergies to accrue value with Mayhem Devils and Goblin Bombardments, but sometimes you can just kill people with a curve.
I mean, right now, you're just taking 6. That's half your life total if you're Wan Shi. And, I mean, this block feels awful.
Oh, it feels terrible.
Like, I don't think you can make this block. I think you have to hope you pull something off the top of your deck, but you're in a bad spot either way. Getting to untap with that Treetop Village is nice. You know, you'll have an opportunity.
But it's going to be a defensive Treetop Village, though, which is not great.
Not the best Treetop Village, but still better than nothing. So we'll see what happens here.
For sure.
Seeing a life total of 11, maybe. Oh, there's more damage taken off the Waterlogged Grove, so maybe we're even lower than we thought. Wan Shi doing some quick math, saying, wow, what happened in this game? It appears I'm basically dead already. How did this happen?
With Wan Shi's deck, it's like a lands deck, and lands decks take a little while to set up. They durdle in the first few turns, and that's where Melissa can really capitalize with these Cult Conscripts and with these Judas and just go, sacrifice plans out the window. I'm just going to get you dead because you have all these shocks and Waterlogged Groves, which passively take away your life away, and it just makes that job easier, right?
And let me remind everybody, this is on a multi-5. Now, Wan Shi also on a multi-5, but nonetheless, seeing what Melissa's deck is capable of in the first few turns of the game, even on a far from ideal opening hand, I think sheds some light on what this deck can really do if she draws the right cards in the right order. Down to 5. Wan Shi says, yeah, I can't afford to take this block. My turtle needs to do better than just trade with a 1-drop.
So Restless Cottage on the top there.
Trying to decide whether or not to put that in hand or put it in the yard. Put it in the yard with Search for Escanta. Not going to flip just yet, but even if it did flip, what does it matter at this point? Card advantage is not the thing that matters right now. What matters is your life total.
So how can you survive in this turn?
We're not quite dead on board, I don't think. We're very, very close, because remember, if you block and trade with anything, you're going to take damage from Judith. So I think what we have to do here is control magic the Judith, hope that Melissa has no answer for that, and then next turn, attacking is much harder for Melissa. She stands to lose something to the turtle and trade with her own Judith and then Another point of damage is going somewhere else, so you probably end up blocking a zombie with the turtle. You ping the Cult Conscript with the Judith ping. This could be a big turn if this control magic does what it's supposed to do. Sometimes it's hard to see the mana base here. Do we know that Wan Shi definitely has double blue?
Yes, because you got Watery Grave.
We got Watery Grave and Waterlogged Grove, so that will get you there, but it will put you to 4 in the process.
Right.
Not exactly where you want to be. The only other option I think will be here, and we can kind of sneak this Mind Stone in here without playing off curve. We can do both, Mind Stone and Control Magic, and here it comes.
Yep, here we go.
I'll take that Judith. Very lucky that the Judith is untapped here, because if it was tapped, that Control Magic's not going to untap it, and it wouldn't be enough to stabilize. So now Melissa needs something, I think, because this attack is not looking so good anymore.
Well, there's the Callous Mage. And we've got a Bastion of Remembrance there as well.
Now, Bastion changes the math yet again, because at some point, again, these decks are so good, whether they're on the offensive or the defensive, right? Because at some point, you can just swing out, and even if your opponent has every great block in the world, your creature's dying just causes them to lose. And Melissa's saying, yeah, you know what?
Let's be aggressive.
Let's get in there.
Let's force it.
You want to block my stuff? You're going to take a bunch of damage.
And there's game 1.
That's it.
That
all
didn't
done
take
here.
long at all.
All right, well.
That was quick.
Melissa's deck doing kind of what we expected Melissa's deck to do, and even on a fairly aggressive Mull 2-5. While our players are doing their sideboarding, thinking about the next match, I do want to thank another one of our sponsors here for CubeCon, and that sponsor is Card Castle. Card Castle is the exclusive sponsor of CubeCon University, which is a special event that John Terrell is putting on here. John Terrell of Cult to Cube, all about the theory and craft behind cube design. And what Card Castle is a way to organize your collection of cards digitally. So, Emma, if you're anything like me, I know you got a bunch of boxes at home, and you're like, I know I have 6 copies of this card.
Yeah.
I'm certain. They're somewhere here.
I have so many commons, it needs sorting out.
And if you want your big collection to be accessible to you so you can find cards, know what you got, not rebuy singles that you actually already had somewhere that you forgot you owned, Card Castle is a great way to track your collection. It says here some people are even organizing and tracking their cubes on Card Castle, which that would be new to me, but you're a cube designer out there, that is an option available to you. So huge thank you to Card Castle for sponsoring CubeCon. What does Wan Shi have to do in game 2 here?
Stem
number 1.
Bleeding of aggression that Melissa can do.
Number 1, let's not mulligan to 5. Let's just simply draw a good opening 7.
Yep.
Skill issue.
It'll be interesting to see whether he can sculpt a hand that just stems the aggression in the early turns. These land decks tend to be pretty slow. They need a few turns to set up, right? And this is where Melissa can just go 1, 2, 3 punch, kill you.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that Melissa's deck does not care one iota about card advantage.
Right.
We have the cantripping 3-drop that can draw a card and cost you a life. And that's, I think, it in terms of ways to actually generate positive card advantage. What Melissa's deck is doing is generating all this virtual card advantage of, I mean, Curse of Shallow Graves, that's virtual card advantage.
That won the game there.
That made 3 zombies right there. That's a lot of power and toughness for 3 mana. Just turning any of your creatures into a huge Rabble Master is pretty good. So we see a lot of card advantage and card selection out of Wan Shi's deck, but that's not going to matter unless it is finding the cards that are going to stop and slow down Melissa's deck along the way. I don't know. Like I said, I think this is a tall order.
It's tough as well because like the lands deck doesn't have interaction, it's counter magic. There isn't a lot of removal, so how are you dealing with these threats?
We do know that Wan Shi is playing Sultai. We saw some black mana in the lands there, though no black spells.
Imprison in the Moon was the only removal spell that I saw.
Control Magic, I think, is definitely
magic.
in a removal kind of vein. You know, it's similar to the removal spell. So we'll see if there's any other removal floating around in that pool. Maybe Summer's coming out of the sideboard now.
Sure.
Maybe we have a bunch of black removal spells on the sideboard for our Sultai mana base that we're not main decking for some reason. Just because, you know, again, I think there's a wide variety of types of decks you can draft here. Not all of them, like I learned in my draft this morning, a lot of them you don't want your cheap removal against. But this is not the matchup. This is the matchup where you do want your cheap removal, because if you can't answer these little threats, they're going to run away with the game very quickly. Speaking of run away with the game, let's head back down to the table for game 2.
So we have a Mana Leak on the right here. We've got a Spell Pierce.
Deeproot Wayfinder.
Looks like we have a Watery Grave, and I believe it's the Turtle.
Keeping this hand that looks like a 2-lander, Watery Grave and Forest, but Deeproot Wayfinder will find more lands. Wan Shi on the play here after losing round 1.
We also have a Search Rust Canter, which can filter out some
Yeah, exactly.
clunky draws as well.
Wayfinder also decent stats for the cost, so that will actually brawl fairly nicely with some of the things that Melissa is doing, but it doesn't actually accrue its card advantage unless you are hitting your opponent with it, which I would expect that we're going to see a lot of defensive Deep Root Wayfinder this game, probably.
It does block the zombies from the Curse of Shallow Graves as
well.
Yeah,
but 2/3 is good.
Relevant.
Priest of the Forgotten Gods. This is a sack outlet that can kind of take over a game if you have enough ways to continue feeding it. Because I've definitely played against some decks on other cubes where they have enough token generation to feed the priest, and you're basically just getting the Abyss every turn. It's like every turn you're sacrificing a creature, I'm generating mana, I'm drawing cards, and those cards that I'm drawing are going to allow me to keep doing this turn over turn.
These are the sort of cards that take over like these Simic decks that will care about card advantage.
Beautiful.
And
All right, so we see the swing here. Obviously, Melissa not going to sacrifice the Priest of the Forgotten Gods at the Deep Root Wayfinder. So we do hit a land off the top. So a good beats there for Wan Shi to actually do a little bit of ramping here with Deep Root Wayfinder. Though no land for turn, so only ramping kind of in spirit.
Yeah.
We do have 2 counterspells held up now. I expect whatever this is going to get mana leaked. This is your time to mana leak a spell.
Yeah.
You didn't have anything else to play on curve. Melissa's tapping out. This is the 3-drop with the Modal Enter the Battlefield ability, whose name I totally remember.
Callous Blood Mage.
Thank you, Callous Blood Mage. Production's got my back. Thank you, production. We do indeed see that getting mana leaked. Not sure I love keeping the Spell Pierce in the main deck here for Wan Shi.
Yeah, you've got a lot of creatures. Maybe they're just really apprehensive of this Curse of the Shallow Graves, and they've got no real way of dealing with it.
Curse did absolutely...
It's steamrolled that
Steamrolled that game 1, so, if you see that card and you have no enchantment removal or very slim enchantment removal, you might just be forced to play a Spell Pierce that doesn't line up against most of the deck, but is really good in specific contexts.
And considering the sacrifice decks tend to have a low mana curve, right? So they're able to play lots of spells at once. So you can very easily tap out, and the Spell Pierce might get Melissa for some reason.
See a Wild Growth in Wan Shi's hand here. Basically, Llanowar Elves with haste that you can't Lightning Bolt. Pretty good card. So but first, we're going to get in there with the Deep Root Wayfinder.
I'm going to Surveil.
The value that is being accrued turn over turn here should be noticed. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Wan Shi needs to get ahead on this game, is the Deep Root Wayfinder to actually keep finding lands and keep that card advantage, so you can afford to start trading 1-for-1 in combat, just blocking things, letting your creatures die because you have this card advantage.
Yeah.
Wild Growth on the island here, 2 mana, blue and a green. Play that Search for his Canta. Now we have card selection going, and we are not under any real pressure. We just have a Priest of the Forgotten Gods, which did the old walk of shame last turn, which is what I call it whenever a creature that you'd rather not attack with ends up attacking.
Yeah.
Melissa hitting all of her land
drops.
drops.
Melissa does have a Corvold in hand.
Corvold in hand. Will we find the green mana is the question. I see a Hangerback Walker, which is coming down now.
This is really nice with the Priest.
This is great with Priest of the Forgotten Gods.
Really nice
coming down on 2. Still not going to block the Deep Root Wayfinder at all. And here we see a cycled Hieroglyphic Illumination. Just give me a new card. Interesting to see the cycling there. That tells me that Wan Shi is still concerned about finding near-term answers because, not under any immediate pressure.
Nope.
You might surmise that you might just want to actually cast that Hieroglyphic Illumination for 4 in a turn or 2. But it looks like Wan Shi intends to use their mana in the next couple turns.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to, while they have an open blue, just get that Hieroglyphic Illumination out there, draw something else.
Just try and be efficient as much as possible.
Frankly, looking like trying to find lands, to be honest. I mean, we have lands in play only because we've hit them off Deep Root Wayfinder. We
do have a draw Titania, so that is really relevant with the Deep Root Wayfinder.
Titania also great with that Misty Rainforest in play. Just get to put that on the stack right now, and it's going to resolve. You're playing against red-black, and they're tapped out. So here comes Titania, almost certainly, and it's going to get back that Misty Rainforest, which is going to threaten to make a 5-3 at any moment. But then we're going to run into a situation where you've got the ability to fade Titania and the Elementals for quite a few turns just on the back of Hangerback Walker.
Right, that's what I was saying earlier. It's like you can just build Hangerback Walker to the point where you're just blocking with these measly 1/1 flyers against these vanilla 5/3s.
And keep in mind, that's not actually good if we don't have any of our engines in play and we're not pinging our opponent. If we are just chump blocking to not die, then we're still not happy. So Wan Shi in a pretty commanding position in this game.
Yep.
Opting to make that 5-3 immediately, Another option would be to wait until the end of Melissa's turn to make it, so you dodge sorcery speed removal of any kind. But just says, give me 10 power and toughness in play, or 10 power and 6 toughness in play right now, just on the back of this 5-drop.
Yeah.
All this too before attacking with Deep Root Wayfinder.
Which probably is going to has found a few lands already.
Yeah,
there's some really good value with Deep Root Wayfinder in this game.
Right, I imagine you probably weren't going to see a block with the Hangerback Walker before. Here you might actually see a block now, maybe, though. Yeah, because we now see Titania's in play. You
need to respect these 5/3s that are coming.
Yeah, exactly. Give me those chump blockers, because that's what they're going to be doing anyway, I can see now. So maybe attacking first would have yielded a different line from Melissa there if Melissa had less information about what Wan Shi was going to do. But Wan Shi opting to play spells first main phase and then get in there with the Deep Root Wayfinder, even in the face of a tapped-out opponent. Melissa not missing any land drops, still have Corvold in hand, but no way to generate green mana.
So we have Corvold, Bloodsoaked Champion.
And Fane the Broker, I believe?
I think it's Underworld Connections, maybe?
Oh, yeah, could be that.
There's Braids as well. I believe Braids is the other one. Based on what I can see with the glare.
Now, on board, Wan Shi does not have any way, unless they can hit with that Deep Root Wayfinder to recur a fetch land, to actually make more elementals.
Yeah.
Not to say that, you know, making 10-6 worth of power and toughness is not that great for a 5-drop, but it's not the peaks of what Titania is capable of.
So Priest of the Forgotten Gods is, so we sacked away those 2 Thopters towards Priest of the Forgotten Gods ability and got rid of that Deep Root Wayfinder, who was just incrementing so much value with this Titania in play.
So if I'm not mistaken, Melissa has access to 7 total mana right now.
Black mana. Oh, 7, there's 4 black and then...
I think 5 black, 2 red
black,
is what we've got access to.
And this is Braids.
Here comes Braids. Now the question is, what will Braids Arisen Nightmare end up doing in this spot? Big old paragraph of text on there.
Yeah.
I think you might, I'm not sure. We're going to see. I'm not going to speculate. You know, I'm going to watch the master work here and see what Melissa decides to do. Your creatures are going to trade with those 5/3s anyway, or just get eaten by them. So any opportunity you have to trade one of your creatures for a 5/3 is probably appealing in the abstract. There is Fane the Broker that we saw in Melissa's hand.
Yep.
If you're going to sacrifice something to Braids, do you sacrifice Fane here, or do you sacrifice Priest of the Forgotten Gods?
It's a tough one.
You want Fane to untap so you can get that treasure token and get Corvold live. So I think we may see...
Priest of the Forgotten Gods has done its thing, right?
And right now, you don't have any source of cheap, like, expendable creatures. You have 2 good creatures in play you want to keep. So you might see Priest sacrificed here on end step, 2 Braids Arisen Nightmare, thus forcing Wan Shi to sacrifice. And there it comes.
There we go.
Thus forcing Wan Shi to sacrifice either Titania or the Elemental. Almost certainly the Elemental, unless Wan Shi has some way to reanimate Titania or get the card out of the graveyard in some other way. We still see that control magic in Wan Shi's hand.
We also got this Spell Pierce, which is looking really lost now with the amount of mana that Melissa has access to.
Yeah, and also, again, the vast majority of Melissa's cards are creature cards.
Yes.
It's a very, very creature-heavy deck, so maybe now that Wan Shi has seen more of Melissa's deck and even is not just singularly afraid of Curse of Shallow Graves, we might see that Spell Pierce sided out if there is a Game 3. All right, Melissa drawing a card off of Braids. Yeah, so basically, Wan Shi has the option there to either sacrifice a token or allow Melissa to draw a card, and Wan Shi takes 2 life, pays 2 life. That's the sort of choice that Braids gives your opponent. So Wan Shi making the assessment that I'd rather keep my 2 5/3s, and you can have a card, and I'll take 2. That's fine.
Wan Shi is debating on whether to keep this card on top from the Search of Azcanta.
Did you get a peek at it? I'm not sure what we're looking at here.
Unfortunately, but it must be something decent if, you know...
Ooh.
Noxious Gearhulk. Okay.
Noxious Gearhulk, but no double black, just a single black mana, so a card that you would love to resolve. The life gain is huge. It's a really powerful body.
It's got Menace as well, so it makes it... Especially on this board, it's just really hard to block because there's just no tokens around.
Yeah, I can see why that was a painful card to decide to bin for Wan Shi, but without that second black, kind of a dead card for a little while here until you manage to find another source of black mana. Now, the question is Wan Shi willing to trade elementals for Braid's Arisen Nightmare, which is a 3/3, so that will just trade with the elemental in combat, or the Titania, should Wan Shi decide to get in combat with Titania. And I'm not sure. You know, I mean, this situation, part of me wants to say, trade as much as you can when Melissa does not have any of those engine pieces in play.
Right, this is it.
Right? If you're going to trade now, before there's a Blood Artist, a Zulport Cutthroat, a Mayhem Devil, a
Goblin
Judas.
Barbar,
Good
Goblin
gracious,
Barbars.
Melissa has every payoff for this
like,
deck.
There's a lot of good top decks Melissa has access to, right?
For sure. But then on the other hand, you are trading down. I mean, 5/3 for this 3/3, which unclear exactly on this board state how much Melissa is going to be able to really benefit off of that big block of rules text on Braid's Arisen Nightmare.
Yes.
Like a source of...
Oh, here we go. This 5/3 rumbles in.
Choosing to offer up the trade here, should Melissa decide to take it. What is the power toughness on Fane the Broker? I got to double check that. Is that also a 3/3? Also a 3/3, yeah. So options for trading in both places. Though Fane, right now, is Melissa's road to casting Corvold.
You want to untap with this creature. You want to activate it as much as possible.
Melissa deciding just to take 5, going down to 11, using that life total as a resource. I think totally reasonable. The more game pieces Melissa has in play, the more her deck is functioning.
And then we're going to mind control. We're going to control magic this Braids.
Taking Braids with control magic. Melissa, no way to deal with this, but maybe breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief that Wan Shi did not choose to take Fane, because this still leaves the Corvold line open, which will Corvold totally stabilize this game? I'm not sure, but you did get control magic out of Wan Shi's hand. You really don't want your Corvold to get control magic. And then we see Ranger class coming down. A level up enchantment that makes a bear on ETB, or is it a wolf? Some kind of animal. It's a wolf.
It's a 2/2 wolf.
Some 2/2 green token.
Yes.
Of some renown. And that will have the ability to generate some more card advantage and level up over time. Looks like Wan Shi using Braid's ability to sacrifice that wolf token, and Melissa making the same choice that Wan Shi did in the previous turn, saying, I'll take 2, you draw a card. I need to keep my Fane, because this Fane, little did you know it, it's actually a Corvold.
Yes.
So we don't know what Melissa drew, and I mean, Corvold does not really stabilize on this board.
It's not doing a lot on this board.
I mean, it still does a lot, but it's not going to turn the game around solely.
No. Not when there's going to be a steady stream of 5/3 elementals coming as well.
Production, can we get Corvold Fey Cursed King up on screen? Because I think this is going to be a key card here that is going to...
Thank you.
Yeah, so 4/4 flyer that's going to enter the battlefield and cause Melissa to sacrifice almost certainly a land and then become a 5/5.
Yeah.
But that 5/5 still going to just trade with one of those tokens right now.
Okay, we have Zulaport Cutthroat, just trying to mitigate some of that life loss from that 5/3 in the previous turn.
Melissa may be trying to get to a point where she can play Corvold and sacrifice something else in addition to the sacrifice from the ETB in the same turn, so that she can make it big enough to block those elemental tokens without trading off in combat.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to Bone Shards the Titania, I
Beautiful,
believe?
yeah. Bone Shards Titania. It looks like we're discarding a mountain to do so. A few more lands than Melissa would like to have at this point, so let's keep our creatures and just get rid of Titania.
Oh, no, he's got rid of the Braids.
I'm sorry. Bone Shardsing Braids. Really interesting.
What? I wonder what else is in Melissa's hand.
I mean, Melissa clearly saying she's not afraid of Wan Shi pulling another fetch land or another way to recurve that Misty Rainforest out of the graveyard. Here we do see Search for his Cantaflip.
Turning into an Impulse.
That is something, though, you know, a fair few creatures in Wan Shi's deck as well. It's not, you know, a dedicated Spellslinger deck by any regard.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's just a nice value guard just to try and find something you need based on the situation.
Ponder off the top here. Spell Spear still kind of rotting away in hand a little bit. And we see Blossoming Tortoise as well, in addition to an island. So, Wan Shi's going to play this Ponder and see if it can find something a little better to do with the mana.
Or just take the shuffle.
We see Tatyova there. that is Tatyova, Steward of Tides.
And then we have a Polluted Delta, and I can't quite see the card in the middle.
Best card here by far is Polluted Delta.
Yeah.
Polluted Delta makes you another 5/3.
I think it's a blue card in the middle. Can't quite tell.
I'm not sure what it is, but whatever it is, I'd be surprised if it was better than Polluted Delta in this spot, because that's also going to be a 5/3 that, you know, Melissa's already shown that it's going to be a struggle to deal with those 5/3s in the first place. Making another one seems quite good.
Yes.
Let me see if I can do some detective work here on the little piece of that art we can see on that blue card. Is that maybe a... No, not Mana Leak. We already saw Mana Leak come down this game.
Remand.
It's Remand. Okay. Different printing of Remand than... oh, no. Here we go. So in the tank here, I really like this Polluted Delta personally.
I
Let's see.
agree.
Keeping them all on top. Drawing the
Tatyova
for turn. Okay. What does Tatyova do again exactly? Is that going to allow you to draw into that Polluted Delta right away?
Makes
No.
more elementals, right?
It will make 3/3s, turn your lands into 3/3s on landfall. So maybe trying to set up a big Alpha Strike next turn where you get 2 landfall triggers off the Polluted Delta and the card you fetch. You make another elemental. That one's going to have Summoning Sickness, though.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of swing in for a big Alpha Strike.
And we can get this tail that gets a land back.
Oh, choosing to, play the tortoise. And, okay, we forgot about the tortoise.
We can mill the
We can do both. So Wan Shi, seeing through the matrix here, playing that tortoise. It does bring the land into play tapped, though, right?
Yes.
Yes, so not going to get that elemental.
But you still get one next turn. It's despite you not getting the value straight away, I still think this is the correct line.
Yeah, a lot of cardboard put in play this turn on Wan Shi's side of the board, and just putting a lot of pressure on Melissa Totora.
Gumming up this board and making a Besiju who endures a 3/3.
So, what does Melissa need off the top? I mean, honestly, 10 life. 10 life is quite a bit. Quite a bit to, like...
It's quite a bit.
I'm thinking, like, can we draw Judith, Mayhem Devil, Goblin Bombardment, and just win by sacrificing our board? And we're not too far off, shockingly. No. But we're not going to have the time, it looks like. It looks like you got one more turn, maybe, to actually pull off a line like that before we're going to Game 3 here. Looks like Wan Shi, considering their attacks, once again, after main phasing all of those spells, now thinking about whether or not they want to get into the red zone.
And the answer is yes.
In this case, it makes sense to do that because we're getting into the red zone with that token, or the land rather, that the Tatyova has animated. So you got to play that first main phase if you want to animate that land. You need that landfall trigger off of the Blossoming Tortoises and the battlefield ability to do so. This is a swing for 13. That's way more than Melissa can take at 9 life only. So got to decide what to sacrifice here to get another look at stuff. Looks like we're going to be attempting to trade Feign with Titania and just chump block with Zulapur Cutthroat. Are we not going to see an activation of Feign? Is that sorcery speed only? Feign. Sacrifice a creature. Oh, you can only create a treasure by removing a counter from a creature you control.
Oh, okay.
A lot of different rules text on there. So we needed a +1/+1 counter on something to make a treasure token with Feign. So in this case, activating it doesn't really do anything for her.
And Melissa scoops it up.
Off we go to Game 3. So we see what Wan Shi has to do.
Yes.
We want early pressure. We want a big board, and we want to do that before Melissa can get any of these sort of value engines set up, any of these attrition value engines, any of these big enablers and payoffs to combine in a way that, I mean, even in a game where it felt like Melissa was behind almost the whole time, we still talked about a couple of draws that would make that board really sticky for Wan Shi really quickly.
For Melissa's deck, she has some really, really good top draws just for the amount of the amount of sacrifice synergies in the deck. We'll probably see that Spell Pierce be sideboarded out because it was just a
I
deck
would
card.
imagine. If I were Wan Shi after that game, I'm like, I don't want this card rotting away in my hand ever
Sacrifice
again.
is all about creatures doing things. Like, yes, Goblin Bombardment's in there. Curse of the Shallow Grazer's in there. But these are what, like 2 or 3 full cards. You can't play to those small margins.
And you know, Wan Shi doesn't have Melissa's entire deck list, but what I know if I'm Wan Shi is that if I'm building that deck, I want as many of my effects, my removal, staple to creatures, because creatures are a valuable card type for me a priori. So as much as Melissa can, she's probably minimizing the non-creature spells, so just the really broken ones and as few as possible. So I think we'll probably see that Spell Pierce come out. I think what we saw from Melissa there was kind of getting a little glutted on 3-drops. We had a lot of 3-drops, but not ways to multi-spell meaningfully in the early game, and lacking that sort of early pressure that we saw from that Cult Conscript in Game 1.
We also saw a lot of lands as well. She was drawing into a lot of basics, and even discarded one to that Bone Shards. So a little bit less flood would be nice, just to follow it up with some, interaction, some sacrifice effects, and maybe even trying to get this core vault down. Yeah,
so Wan Shi showing that this matchup is maybe not so bad after all. We're going to see if Melissa can pull out another powerful opening curve here. We had no mulligans that game.
No mulligans.
No mulligans.
Kept to 7.
It was a fresh 7. And like we said, I think full 7 really does relatively benefit Wan Shi's deck. Like I said, I think if Melissa could choose to start every game with both of those players on 5 cards, she would happily do so. So mulligans are going to come into play here for sure. And, yeah, I think it's just going to come down to if we can actually get an engine online, or if we were forced to. I mean, really, she was just put in a position where she had to.
She was on the
chump
back
block.
foot. She was just on the back foot from the start.
Had to chump block before there was any opportunity to benefit from it.
Yep.
And that was because of the wild growth into a turn early Titania. Which
right. And when you play cards like Zulaport Cuffrate, you don't want to be defensively blocking with those. Because even though Melissa was on
you don't ever want to be blocking with
no,
those.
right. So you're on like 9 or 10 life. You want this to be a way to try and gain some life, right? And when you're on the back foot and have these 5/3 elementals coming at you, it just doesn't feel great using probably your only other way to gain life from that deck, you know, as just fodder.
Let's go settle things in game 3. Back down to the table. Melissa on the play. Looks like we got 2 7-card hands. Swamp, go. No 1-drop for Melissa. Over to Wan Shi.
So we've got a Polluted Delta, which we're going to crack for
some sort of green,
tomb,
some sort of green land, and
probably an
wild growth it up. We see Dress Down, Remand, another land in Wan Shi's hand, and a Blood Artist from Melissa on turn 2, which great turn 2 play.
Pretty good.
Would be so much better if there had been any 1-drop on turn 1 to be putting any pressure on and also representing guaranteed value from this Blood Artist in the face of any other kind of interaction. Like how Melissa's not even bothering to wait for Wan Shi to finish finding their land.
It's just respecting time, right?
Yeah. Also, maybe just trying to put the pressure on a little bit. I think, you know, it's well known that if your opponent's playing really quickly, you start to feel pressure, even if you're not actually under literal pressure. Just, you know, crowd the table a little bit. We are taking 3 damage as Wan Shi to get this Overgrown Tomb and Wild Growth on turn 1, so...
Just really want to ramp up into those threats before Melissa can
Watery Grave, Forest, Dress Down, Remand, Island. It's like 2 cards we haven't seen yet. Another Forest, it looks like.
I do see a Titania in hand. So
you do?
Yeah, I believe there's a Titania in hand.
Well, that is exactly what we want to be ramping into, especially with that Polluted Delta already in the graveyard. We are going to see a 2-3 curve here from Melissa. What is the 3-drop?
Curse of Shadow Graves? No, it's Woe Strider.
Woe Strider. Perfectly good 3-drop in this situation. It's going to get remanded, though. Let's just delay that by a turn, and I'll keep drawing a card and keep my plan going. Solid remand here out of Wan Shi.
Yes, agreed.
This is pretty close to, you know, the Time Walk style remand where, you know, Melissa spent an entire turn and did nothing and is back at square one.
Yeah. You get
Torrential Gear Hulk now in hand for Wan Shi, which, if we can get to that point of the game, we'll probably do quite a bit. Big body, get an instant back for free. Interesting to see now, Melissa on 4 mana. Will she try to redeploy the Woe Strider? She will. Or will she have something else to do with that mana?
So we see a Bastion of Remembrance, we Goblin Bombardment. I believe there's a Korvold, and then the... Can't remember the card, but it's the other Rakdos legendary that isn't Judith.
The
cat,
Mahadi Emporium. I think
one.
we're seeing Wan Shi think about the Dress Down right now in response to the Woe Strider, which would keep Melissa from getting that goat token.
There we go.
And that's what we're going to see. So this is just going to turn that Woe Strider into a vanilla 3/2 to end of turn. No goat token for you. I'll just simply draw a card.
Just wants to trade all these spells into more cards, so you can just keep the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, here what you're basically looking at, Dress Down, is 2 mana, draw a card, kill a 1/1.
You just want to stall the board to the point
where...
Or
an 0/1, I guess. 0/1 goat.
You just want to stall the board to the point where you're like, hey, I can deploy this Titania and I can take over the game with all these fetches that Wan Hu has.
And, you know, Wan Shi just wants to keep hitting land drops, too.
Yes.
And I think they have plenty of lands in hand, but that's the point of cantripping with this remand, cantripping with that Dress Down. Let's just go land, Titania. Titania proving to be a big problem for Melissa. I mean, we had maybe speculated that, you know, on an established board, those 5/3s might just be getting chumped and having life total chipped away at. But here we see it coming down right now, I imagine. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, get that Polluted Delta.
Get that Polluted Delta back and...
Make a 5/3.
Now the question is, can Melissa have a stream of chump blockers ready to actually just stave off the damage from this Titanian Elemental? I mean, you do have the Woe Strider, which can trade with something, which is great.
Yeah.
That's going to keep at least the Titania itself at bay until there's an answer to the Woe Strider, I imagine. Wan Shi may be willing to trade off an Elemental token for the Woe Strider. I'm not sure. But definitely a lot of power and toughness out of Wan Shi. And then we'll just see a Ponder. Just, you know, follow up with a Ponder. Mana Leak, Land, and Ranger class.
Yeah. Some good cards here. This Mana Leak is also fine.
Mana Leak looking really good right now.
Looking really good right now.
Because what you can do right now is Mana Leak, next turn and then have Torrential Gearhulk up the turn after for Mana Leak or Remand to just keep controlling the game. So really there's one window here where Melissa's going to get to resolve spells undisturbed by Wan Shi. So this turn is, whether she knows it or not, a key turn in this game.
Trying to see what else is in Melissa's hand.
Looks like Goblin Bombardment is there.
Yep. So we have Bastion Remembrance. We have Goblin Bombardment.
And Mahadi.
Mahadi.
One more gold card as well.
Want to say
hopefully
Corvold?
not. Hopefully not Corvold, because that
might be Corvold.
That once again is not doing a whole lot here.
Attack with the Woe Strider.
Now, interesting. So Melissa getting into the red zone here, making the assessment that if I'm going to kill you, it's going to be through chip damage from cards like Blood Artist. Looks like maybe Wan Shi forgot about the trigger on Blood Artist.
Yep.
Maybe taking back the block and just taking 3. Let's see here what's happening. What we need to see out of Melissa is a sort of constant stream now of cheap creatures to clog up this board.
Yes. Something like a Hangerback Walker would be really good. Granted, it wasn't good last game, but just something that can stem the bleeding, because this Titania is going to take over the game.
Yeah, Hangerback Walker would be great here. That would fade damage from the Titania and the Elementals for quite some time. And along the way, it's going to drain your opponent for 3.
Yeah.
If you just play it on 2. 1 trigger to the Hangerback Walker dying, 2 more triggers to the Thopters dying. Looks like some careful deliberation and, you know, negotiating of exactly how this Blood Artist trigger is resolving here. I don't think we have a land out of Melissa this turn.
We also have one mountain, which might be a problem later on.
It's going to make double spelling hard. We don't have any double red spells in our whole deck, I'm pretty sure, but we do have a fair number of gold cards in our hands, so double spelling not going to be possible until we get another one of those red mana sources.
We have a judge interaction by the looks of it.
Yeah, not sure what's going on here, but I'm sure our judges staff here will get it sorted out. Big thank you to all of the judges at CubeCon. This is a very different kind of event to judge. You know, everybody's got, again, thousands of unique cards in the room, lots of unique rules interactions to negotiate. Not only that, but also having to be the caregivers of all of these cubes over the weekend. You know, we walk in and just hand over 50 different cubes to these judges, and they're responsible for keeping them safe all weekend. So huge thanks to our judging staff, who is fantastic, and all the organizers here at this event. All right, we're back.
Looks like Melissa has a braids in her hand also.
I'm guessing that judge interaction was Wan Shi asking about whether or not that block could be taken back for some reason.
Oh, sure.
After not realizing the Blood Artist was going to trigger. Now we see Mahadi, some descriptive name after that coming down. Let's get this card pulled up here. This is Mahadi Emporium Master. Thank you, production. This is going to make a treasure token, which, if that last gold card is Corvold, two treasure tokens actually, because 2 creatures did die, which, if that last card is Corvold, we may see that come down and actually start to stabilize this game, because having that additional treasure in play when you play Corvold means that you get way more value the turn you cast it, as long as it resolves, which we know it actually probably won't, because unless Wan Shi decides to tap out of their Mana Leak and Torrential Gearhulk here, they're going to have multiple access to permission in their hand. But they're not winning this game right now with just Titania in play. Well, another Fetch Land will help, certainly. Polluted Delta for Wan Shi, which will make another 5/3 elemental whenever it gets sacrificed. Choosing to just pass the turn. Now, will Melissa sniff out this counterspell? And if so, what do you do instead? Do you play a lesser spell into it? Do you say, well, I'm just going to keep passing the turn because...
There is a Heartless Act in hand. I think it's a Heartless Act or a Braids. I think it's a
either of those would get rid of the Titania.
It is a Heartless Act.
Well, I guess Braids wouldn't, no, because we can make an elemental at instant speed. So Heartless Act will do it.
So we're going with the Bastion, maybe?
3 mana here for Bastion of Remembrance. Now, will this elicit a counterspell out of Wan Shi?
Just trying to bait some counter magic, maybe?
Wan Shi does not have enough mana to Mana Leak and Torrential Gearhulk this turn. They will have both up next turn if they choose to not spend any counterspells this turn. 3 mana, so something else in hand. That's a lose focus. That's a replicated lose focus. So countered unless you pay 2 twice, which Melissa will not be able to do.
Nope.
So Wanchi got to hold up Blue's focus and also Mana Leak this turn, which is going to make it very difficult for Melissa to do much of anything.
Yes.
I think Wanchi is demonstrating what a successful control deck in this cube looks like, and the answer is you got to be applying some pressure along with your answers.
Yeah.
You need to have your Titania or something. I mean, if this game was playing out the same way, but there wasn't a Titania in play, there wasn't a Titania and here we're going to see this Mana Leak come out for sure to protect Titania from this Heartless Act in response to the Polluted Delta being sacrificed.
Yeah.
Can't imagine this is going to resolve. Yeah, here comes the Mana Leak. Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like a pretty devastating turn for Melissa DeTore there.
Just being denied at every possibility.
Wanshi getting another elemental token, 2 counterspells, doing a great job picking apart this black-red deck, which you and I said looked really strong.
Really strong. Like, and everyone agreed. Like, we talked to Melissa and like
talked to Melissa, talked to Parnell about it. Everyone was like, "This deck is messed up," and I don't think we're wrong. But I think what we're seeing from Wanshi is exactly how to pick it apart.
Yeah.
And it takes a Titania, protecting it, and then having answers for everything else.
And also,
this game's far from over. I mean, just to be clear.
But also, the sacrifice deck hasn't had that really aggressive 1-2-3 start that we saw.
We have
game
not
one,
had the
which
one drop.
Melissa
I think
won.
is really key. Yeah, that cult conscript in game 1 I think made a huge difference.
And then just having this stem of zombies, thanks to the Curse of the Shallow Graves as well, just allowed Melissa just to keep applying this pressure.
So now Wanshi is in a very commanding position. We have Torrential Gearhulk with 3 different counter spells in the graveyard. So we have a 5/6 with Flash, new biggest body on the battlefield, plus answer your next thing, whatever it is.
And
I'd be very surprised to not just see past the turn here.
Yeah,
maybe you swing in with the elemental token, maybe, but I don't think you need to apply any pressure immediately.
You got this Torrential Gearhulk, which is also going to apply a bunch of pressure the second it comes down.
All right, offering up the trade with Mahadi. Melissa just going to take 5.
Yep.
Waterlogged Grove threatens to make yet another elemental token here at instant speed.
And also a card draw, which is relevant in this situation.
We've got, looks like Boseiju in hand as well, should Wanshi ever come up against a problematic Curse of Shallow Graves or a Goblin Bombardment, but frankly, none of these things look like a huge problem right now. Maybe a question for the judge here from Wanshi, or perhaps a little break.
I think it's a rest room break.
So, Melissa, in kind of a bleak spot right now, for sure. What kind of combination of cards could we see off the top here? I mean, the next thing we see is going to get countered. Pretty much no matter what it is.
This Torrential Gearhulk is going to come down, and Mana Leak's going to resolve, right?
Torrential Gearhulk is going to counter the next thing that comes down. It's going to put a 5/6 in play.
Yeah.
I mean, again, still no evasion. So if we had something like a Bitter Blossom or a Curse of Shallow Graves or some other repeatable source of token generation, we might be able to.
Maybe a Hangerback Walker, but I don't even think that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, not when it gets countered, certainly.
Yeah,
I mean, we need something threatening enough to elicit to pull that counterspell and that Torrential Gearhulk out of Wanshi's hand. And then on top of that, we need something to follow it up with that's even better, that can actually turn the corner here.
Right.
It's going to be a couple turns before Melissa is actually truly dead, but looking really tough to come back from this spot.
It's going to be really difficult. There's just been too much interaction. Melissa's had to almost play like a tap-out play style. It just makes it really hard to interact with.
This does beg the question. You know, we talked about how hard to imagine a better-looking red-black sacrifice deck in this cube, but what we don't know is how good is that deck. And perhaps even the best version of this deck is not going to hang against powerful cards like Titania. Maybe that single card just does enough on its own that it really kind of negates all of those synergistic engines as long as you can back it up with some kind of interaction.
And as we mentioned at the start of the broadcast, like how just having like 2 of each fetch really makes cards like Titania just really strong, because you can just double up on all these effects and just have an army of 5/3s.
Absolutely. I do think it really comes down to the lack of 1-drops. If there's one thing we can call out is 1-drops in any of those games means that by the time we're at this stage of the game, Wanshi's at 4, 6, 8 less life. And that means that all of these attacks right now, all these blocks right now that are just kind of desperate, don't die kind of blocks become relevant things with the engine pieces like Zulaport Cutthroat and Blood Artist. Back to the game, we are still in Wanshi's main phase as far as I know, deciding if they want to do something in second main before just passing the turn, holding up Torrential Gearhulk, and no. I can't imagine wanting to do anything there. I'm just going to keep my mana, keep my Gearhulk in hand, and make Melissa make the first move, because you are in a winning position right now.
Yeah, I just want to play this Gearhulk and just...
Second red for Melissa. 3 cards in hand. We know one is Goblin Bombardment. We think one is Corvold, but we haven't actually seen that for sure. It is Corvold. And the middle one is Heartless Act. No, Heartless Act got countered last turn. The middle one's a black card of some description. I'm not sure which one. Will you let me have a Goblin Bombardment? Now, do you let this? I let this resolve if I'm Wan Shi, I think, at this point.
Sure, it's not really doing anything on this board, right?
I mean, it will allow the chump blocks from creatures on these elemental tokens to be 2 damage instead of 1 damage. You know,
Sure.
1 life loss off the Blood Artist, plus you sacrifice the Goblin Bombardment. But you're a 13. You're a 13, and you're putting a lot of pressure on Melissa. I think you let her have it. Wan Shi makes the same assessment.
Here's the braids.
And here we see Braids Arisen,
This
Nightmare
is probably
coming down.
going to get countered.
This one I think you probably counter. Not because it's amazing in this board state. It's not.
You just want to progress the board
Just because
state, right?
you having a 5/6 is amazing, and countering whatever your more expensive spell this turn is going to work really well. We just see Mana Leak getting flashback. No nonsense with this remand or lose focus. Let's just get it out of here.
Yeah.
So we got a Goblin Bombardment. We drew out the Torrential Gear Hulk. Still 2 cards in hand for Wan Shi. Drawing a counter spell off the top, I
I think
think.
it was a control magic.
Or was it Control Magic?
Yeah, it was white border.
Let's see.
Pretty sure it was control magic.
Yes, that is Control Magic off the top. Probably going to button this one up, I have to imagine.
Yeah, you've also got a besiege you for this Goblin Bombardment.
The Control
for
Magic
whatever
is just
reason
going
as well.
to... Right now, the Control Magic is just force you to sacrifice a creature of my choice because we do have Goblin Bombardment in play.
Yeah.
But even that is probably going to be enough to button up this game.
Besiege you this Goblin Bombardment with
Here
one
you
mana,
go.
with 1 mana floating.
You can have a land. I'm just going to get rid of your Goblin Bombardment.
Just strip away just what Melissa is just trying to rebuild.
Now we can see Control Magic on Mahadi or even Blood Artist. Honestly, probably even well, what do you, I don't know what you, I guess you just have to take Mahadi here and then you force Melissa to chump block with Blood Artist, and then you're probably in a spot where you can't lose this game, realistically. What's the sequence going to be from Wan Shi here?
I think this
the other card in hand, Hieroglyphic Illumination.
Yeah.
So even if something goes horribly wrong here, not sure what could go horribly wrong.
Yeah, here we go.
We could reload. Control Magic on the 3/3. Melissa says, yeah, sure, you got it.
Yeah. Just slowly stripping away just everything Melissa tried to rebuild just through all this interaction.
And now I'll swing for 20.
Yeah.
How about that? Melissa is going to survive this attack because she's going to absorb 5 of it, gain another life. She'll be at 3.
But I don't know what you can draw in this situation that just gets you out of it.
We don't have Damnation in our deck. I'll tell you that much.
No.
All right, Melissa, going to take a look at her next draw, at least it looks like.
Yep.
We do have Corvold in hand and a Forest, but scoop up.
It.
So, what we thought was a really strong deck from Melissa DeTora falling to Wan Shi's Sultai control mid-range deck.
Titania controlled, as I like to call it.
Titania was definitely the key card there. I think any of those other sequences of answers with any other threat that wasn't Titania would spit out, was it 20 or 25 power that game over the course of the entire game?
And then the second game as well with the Deep Root.
Exactly, yeah.
Explorer.
Really all about that Titania there. So I guess friendship ended with Melissa DeTora. Wan Shi is my new best friend. We'll be following Wan Shi in round 2 here and see who they'll be up against of our other opponents' decks. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're learning a lot about this cube from watching what seems to me to be like about as good of a black-red control sacrifice deck as you could draft, just falling to some really powerful value-oriented cards out of Wan Shi's deck. Do you have any other thoughts before we throw to break here?
No, I'm really surprised, honestly, just especially after that game 1 where Melissa just had this really aggressive curve with the Cult Conscripts into the Curse of Shallow Graves and just snowballing with this army of zombies. And it's just, fortunately, it just didn't quite come together. Like, Melissa tried to put some pieces down, but eventually it just got countered and slowly picked away to the point where Titania just took over the game.
Yeah, that game 1, we saw the alternate history. Like, that is how all the games could have gone. We could have seen 2 clean games just like that. Easy 2, we'll move on to the next round. But
that's what Cube's like, right? You can just draft the most incredibly synergistic and powerful deck and go, yeah, I feel good about this. This might 3-0. And then you just go, maybe like go 1-2 or 0-3. Yet a random pile of cards could also 3-0. It's just how you play.
I mean, that's the beauty of Magic,
right?
That's the
beauty of Cube
if we knew what was going to happen sitting in the booth here, this game would not be anywhere near as fun. So join us back. We'll be here. We'll be back in a moment with round 2. Are we going to go to our backup match right now, or are we going to go to break?
Okay.
They're done. All right, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be back with round 2 very shortly, so don't touch that dial.